Welcome to another episode of the Innovating Together podcast. I'm your host, Bridget Burns from the University Innovation Alliance. And today I'm really excited to bring you an episode that is going to feature insights from two fantastic human beings who have both been part of probably the most important thing that we will ever do in the Alliance. I mean, there's lots of great things that we've done together. But I would say the UIA Fellows Program, if you look over the last, 11 years, I think that will be, it's the most important thing because thousands of additional graduates, lots of innovations, but in the end, I think that the most important impact we've created is a pathway and a career pipeline of talent for the future that is equipped around change management, innovation, and collaboration that will infect and support countless more institutions throughout the duration of their career to drive more collaborative, student-centered, empathy-focused, design-oriented, and inclusive solutions that I think are going to serve the future. So I would say the Fellows Program is the thing I'm most proudest of what we've ever done. And these two folks were both members of the Fellows Program. And they are Amy Martin and Renata Opoczynski, who, what I love about this presentation is you finally get to hear the other side of the story. Many of you have likely heard me talk about the idea of process mapping, which is really something that is not particularly unique to UIA or to this work, but the way that we have recognized it as a useful, low-cost tool that anyone can use to drive change and innovation that supports students. And we have used the experience of our campuses to create even more meaningful tools that anyone in the sector can use that we know over time has made a significant difference. The only reason we know that is because of these folks. It's because Michigan State, at our very first convening, they heard about what Georgia State was doing. They heard about the incredible innovation, and they heard that behind every one of their interventions and solutions started with a process map to understand how bad things were before they started, because you can't bring a good solution into a toxic system. You need to actually see the system for how it is and not how you fantasize it to be. I've been talking about, you can see that rolled off my tongue because I've been talking about this now for more than a decade. The reason I've been talking about it is because of the work you're about to hear from. But what I love is that though I have been sharing the perspective that I have, which is standing in the center of these institutions, benefiting from the chance to watch what they do and celebrate it and reinforce and support it, you're going to actually get to hear from the people who did it. Amy Martin was the actual UIA Fellow who had only been at Michigan State for, I believe, 2 months when she came in and was at the Georgia State convening that very first time in 2015, and was the person they sent away to get trained in process mapping. Back then, it would cost at least $1,000, and you go. Orion Group did a great job. I went to their training, but we soon learned that was an impediment to people being able to use that skill. And we also learned that, there's a way to apply process mapping that is general for any business, and then there's a way that you need to use it in student success, and the way that institutions, especially universities, need to use it. And we learned this all by doing. So we learned this from Amy Martin, who you're going to hear from, and she was later followed as the UIA Fellow. When she left, she was followed by Renata Opoczynski. And so finally, you're going to get a chance to hear the long view. Many people have heard the spark of what happened from my vantage point and what I've gathered over the years of Michigan State's change and transformation starting in 2014 and 15 when we first launched. But what you're going to hear now is actually the folks who are on the ground who've been there for the decades since, talking about how they've managed to sustain and make change despite really the exact hurdles that we should be wrestling with today. Like, I'm worried all the time about turnover and transition and how, especially at the presidential level, how that's going to negatively affect innovation progress. Well, here, and this is the case study because Renata and Amy are going to share how their institution has continued to advance student success, spurred initially by that experience, but they've done it amidst extraordinary leadership change. They've had turnover of 7 presidents and 5 provosts in the last decade. And despite that, they've managed to make significant change. And I'm just so grateful for them being willing to share their story and share the insights from this experience. So this is from the UIA National Summit, and it is their short kind of personal experience sharing about navigating change over time. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share this with you. And the only reason I can is because of the generous sponsors of folks at Mainstay and at the Carnegie Corporation of New York, who have long supported this podcast and our work. And they uniquely make it possible for us to share the kinds of professional development and learning that we wished existed. I mean, most of the things that we create at the UIA are things that we wished existed, that we tried it the hard way. And boy, it would have been easier if you could learn from others more quickly, if you could actually listen to inspiring content that was going to motivate you to drive change despite the obstacles that you're experiencing that often make it feel like you're the only one trudging up a hill. Because the reality is that most people who work in higher ed are the one person doing that job at that institution. And that can feel very isolating and lonely. And for me, that's one of the things I observed over time is this kind of tendency for us to always have a bunch of individual institutions operating in an individual way. And so thankfully, because of the collaborative spirit of the leaders who formed the Alliance and folks like Amy and Renata who made that work actually possible, we're now in a position, and with the support of Mainstay and the Carnegie Corporation of New York, to surface and share that this work is possible to be done in this way. You don't have to go it alone. There are examples that you can borrow from elsewhere, and whatever people are telling you about what is not possible, I promise you, there are examples that exist that show institutions making progress despite the turnover and transition, despite the leadership chaos, despite the difficulty of this moment. And this is a time when we absolutely need those kind of inspiring messages. So please join me in enjoying this wonderful presentation.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I came to MSU as the first UIA Fellow, and I identify as a first-generation college student from a rural community in Michigan.
Hi, I'm Renata. I also came to Michigan State as a fellow, and I am a Polish immigrant who came from a low-income background, and I failed all but one class while I was in my first year of college. Our current fellow, Maria, unfortunately is not able to be here to present with us today, but she identifies as an Ecuadorian immigrant and a first-generation college student. There we go. Yeah, sure. So MSU has been through a lot over the last 8 years or so. As you see here, we have had 7 college presidents and 5 provosts since 2018. We've also had some significant institutional trauma and some negative publicity in situations that have occurred. Yet somehow through all of that, we've been able to keep our student success metrics high. So you can see here our graduation rates have increased, even though it says like 82, 82. It was 81.7 and then 82.2. So they did go up, even if when rounded, it doesn't look like they did. So we were asked to kind of come and share a little bit about why we think we've been able to keep this momentum going, even with all this leadership transition and institutional trauma. Or as we like to say at MSU, moving mountains one boulder at a time. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these are the things we've kind of thought about and identified as reasons we think we've been able to keep the momentum. So we're going to talk about each one at a time. So one of the first things we want to talk about is kind of embedding a vision in your campus culture and fabric. So several years ago, we started to use a phrase called learn, thrive, and graduate. We say every student that MSU admits has the ability to learn, thrive, and graduate. And it kind of sets the stage for our institutional deficit model for student success. More recently, we've been talking about our high acceptance rate, but also high graduation rate, or what we call the virtuous quadrant, that we're one of the few institutions that has this high acceptance rate and this high success rate as well. So we have those phrases, they help center us, they help us understand kind of why we're doing the work we do, even as we're facing some institutional trauma or some leadership transitions. And even more importantly, one of the things we do is we just embed them in everything we do. They are on our PowerPoints, they're on our slides, every presentation we give, you hear us talk about these phrases. So like I said, they just get embedded into the institutional fabric so that all of a sudden everyone else is saying them. So when we have leadership transitions, the president or provost comes in and they hear these phrases from multiple stakeholders. So much so that now, even though we had these phrases created before our current president came in, it's embedded in our strategic plan, and it was mentioned at the president investiture, those phrases that we've been kind of using around student success. A second strategy that we think has helped us maintain this momentum is a focus on doing. So part of this is that we got trained in strategic doing, which we learned about from our UIA campus, Purdue. So thank you, Purdue, for introducing us to that concept. But we've also created our own norms, behaviors, expectations that help us focus on consistent incremental changes forward. You can see some of our standard norms here. The yes and mentality is one of them, Bridget. We have embraced that on our campus as well. And then you can see kind of how we structure our timelines and deliverables. Having these structures helps us make sure that we move from talking and brainstorming into doing. Another key thing that we do related to this is we kind of have embraced this, let's just try moving in that direction. So instead of waiting for a perfect solution of how we're going to move, let's try it out. Let's move in that direction, see how it feels. We can always go back, but it gets us from talking and brainstorming into, okay, what are we actually doing to move this work forward?
A third strategy we utilize to try and increase success is a commitment to collaborative change principles. Much like our colleagues at Oregon State University, we are working to intentionally design our student success meetings and work groups to build engagement, buy-in, and support from stakeholders across various roles, ranks, and areas at MSU to create one MSU from the student perspective. Our goal is to ensure strong momentum across the campus and minimize the impact of leadership changes. Specifically, we recently have been employing principles from the collective impact framework, including creating a shared agenda for student success in 5 areas of success, looking at the metrics of how we'll measure each area of success, and streamlining communications across our working groups. And MSU has invested in my role and the role of the UIA Fellow to provide the backbone of support for framing and organizing our engagement across campus so leaders like Renata can focus on strategy and vision. Another strategy we continue to use and improve is co-designing with our students. Students are involved in our daily work. They attend our committee work, they attend our student success leadership meetings, and are active partners in both identifying and helping to remediate barriers to student success. We also regularly listen to students through advisory groups, through student surveys, and qualitative interviews. For example, when launching our recent strategy for student success, we acquired videos from students about their perspectives on each of those areas. And finally, we think the way that MSU conceptualizes the UIA Fellow Role has been important to our momentum. The fellow at MSU is a strategic leader of innovative work. They have autonomy and authority to identify barriers to student success and to design innovative solutions. MSU sees the UIA Fellow Role as an opportunity to take a highly qualified leader, engage them through mentorship, provide them with leadership development opportunities, give them opportunities to lead on campus, and accelerate them into the next phase of their career, which we hope is at MSU in a leadership position. So with that, like those in the UIA who have shared their successes and challenges with us, we invite you to contact us and we're happy to share more. Thank you, and please contact us. We'd love to collaborate with you.